Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Welcome along. It is Inspire and Be Inspired, our weekly motivational conversation. My name is Andy Ward. If you're joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you. I am broadcasting live and direct from the Costa Blanca. It is 8 p.m. on Wednesday, the 16th of November. For the benefit of the recording, if you are coming back and checking out the recording, then please feel free to leave a comment or a reply to any of the topic that comes up tonight. I am joined by two people who have very graciously given me their time to talk about life after addiction, Mr. Stuart Partridge and Mr. Philip West. Before I bring them onto the stream, let me say that I do like to make this as interactive as possible. Most people who join me on a weekly will be more than aware that I welcome all of your comments, all of your points or questions, and when I find a gap in the conversation, I will address the gentleman. Good evening, Julie. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Good evening, Angel, and good evening to the rest of the crew who I know will be watching with interest. Without further ado, let me bring my guests onto the stream and say good evening to Stuart and to Phil. How are you, gentlemen? You all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much.
All good, thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful,
Yeah, same here.
wonderful. So Jane Harrington also says good evening, and my friend John Spohr says he's scrolling through and just happened upon this. Many of my friends who do watch this, whether live or after the event, will definitely, as I've just said, find it interesting and may have some input into the conversation. I've been given a question already that I will plant in the back of your minds, guys. Is there such a thing as a recovered addict? So remember that, and we'll come back to it. The whole point of this conversation is for you guys to share your story and tell us how you got to the point where you realised there was an issue. Before we get there, it's important that we find out about your backstories. We're going to take a very brief look into the history of yourselves and, how you we've all met through music, right? I would assume. And first of all, my good friend here on the left, as we look at the screen, Mr. Partridge is a gentleman that I've known for 35 years, I'd hazard a guess, from the mean, bad streets of Birmingham. Stu, tell us all about yourself, bro.
Yeah, so born in Birmingham, 50 years old now. I was born in Whitton, grew up King Standing, Yent and Sutton. People know Birmingham. Yeah, always big into music. Bought vinyl from a young age, and then just started going to raves and that. Went to indie parties before that and clubs in Birmingham. Then managed to go to Ibiza, Tenerife, lived up in Scotland, and then around '96 moved over to San Francisco for 8 years. Heavily involved in the scene there, and then came back. Did a few things in London. Was in London for about 8 years. Left London, moved. I live in Cambridgeshire now, and been through quite a lot. And 23rd of last year, stopped drinking due to realising that there was. Well, I'd realised 5 years before that, and probably long before that there was issues. But like everybody else, kind of brushed them under the carpet until they come to a point where I had to make a change. If I was
Well, that's got to have been the fastest summary of
I can go deeper, but it might take longer.
an incredible life that I know you've led. So I'm just gonna pull you back a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
on
definitely.
some of that, because you did say early on the memory isn't the best. You made some
No.
bullet points for yourself. Our paths would have crossed at the raves. I can't remember if we would have met on the streets before we started going out clubbing.
I I think we'd have met in the Hummingbird around '89, probably
Hmm.
around then. we might have met before then. I know you lot were. See, I was from the indie side, so I was going Sinatra's and the West End Bar, and like Edwards and that, and from going the Hummingbird on a Saturday to Sensiteria, we few of our friends, people you know, like Ben Prole, Mark Long, and that's who I used to hang out with, said we need to go on a Friday night, and of course went there one Friday night, and that was the beginning of a lot of parties, and that ran right up until I would have thought 2015, like we spoke about earlier, was when I was like, I just don't love this anymore. I really don't enjoy it.
Okay. Well, let me pause you there, because we will go back to those pivotal days. Thank you for that. And as I sit listening, we're definitely going to have an interview, a one-on-one interview, because there's a good 90 minutes just listening to your story, your escapades and your worldwide travels. So we'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
Okay, so Phil. Mr. Philip
Hello.
West, I have to make sure I address you as Phil and not Philip. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you're getting told off, right?
Correct. Yeah. So my dad is Phil Senior, and I'm actually Philip the Third. So yeah, I get called Philip when I'm in trouble, but most of my friends call me Phil. So yeah, I'm Phil West. Born and raised in Nottingham. I'm 46 years old. Started clubbing when I was 16, 17. Started buying vinyl about the same time. I've had a passion for music since I was about 3 years old. I could put a record on a turntable. You know, my mum was massively into Elvis, so we didn't watch telly. We listened to music. Music's been a huge part of my life. And yeah, started going out clubbing. Went clubbing all over the place as soon as I could get a car and drive. I was designated driver. Never used to drink, funnily enough. Always used to show for everyone else around. Never did drugs either, because I've got an autoimmune disease, which I've nearly died from a couple of times. So I didn't think it was worth the risk. So I used to go out and I'd be that happy bounding soul bouncing around the club that everyone thought was on pills and off their face. And I'd be drinking water and drive everyone home at the end of the night or when the sun was coming up. Started DJing properly in clubs, 98, I think, something like that, playing off vinyl. Got a few little breaks here and there locally, and just played warm up for a lot of my friends. And then, yeah, towards the middle of the 2000s, started playing the bigger clubs, and ended up with a residency at Gatecrasher in Nottingham, which led to going over to Ibiza, partying over there, drinking more than I had done. And yeah, carried on DJing, and now I've sort of fallen into a niche of making acapellas and stems and stuff for some of the top producers like Dr. Packer and Michael Gray and Lenny Fontana and people like that. So I've still kept my hand in music. Don't DJ as much as I used to, but because I've got 8-year-old twin boys, one of them's here who wants to come and say hello, and I said he could. So come here quick, Ollie. So this is my eldest twin, Oliver.
Hello.
Good evening, Oliver. How are you?
He said, "How's you?" I said, "How are you?"
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
So he's doing really, really well. He wants to come and say hello.
Wonderful. Good to see
So
you.
there we go. Okay.
Good to see you too.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Bless.
So I probably realised. Sorry about that. I probably had a problem with alcohol. Many years ago, like a lot of people do, and you kind of just brush it under the carpet and think, I'll be all right. I can take it or leave it, and I'd go on benders and recover, have a couple of days off, a week off, whatever, get back into it, and slowly over the years, that problem has reared its ugly head more often than not. And then January 2021, I decided it was time to knock it on the head for good and go sober. And I have been sober since that day. Not had an alcoholic drink, which, if you ask any of my friends or anyone close to me, is the furthest thing from reality that anyone could have expected. I've always been known as a person who loves a drink, big party person, open house here. Everyone used to call this house the Champagne Palace because there was always fizz on the go and housefuls of people, 20, 30 people staying on a weekend. And it was good times. But, I'm older now, a little bit more mature, and realised that side of my life needed to come to an end.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for that summary. A couple of points that you made there, I've made a note of that I'm going to talk to you about a little later on.
All right.
Just saying good evening to Pugwash, Mr. Neil McLean. Good evening to Debs. Good evening to Emily. Thanks for passing through. Again, I will remind everybody watching the recording, please do leave a comment for our friends here, because it is always nice when we do get feedback. Now, we've got three different ways that you can, or you may be watching this video on my own personal profile, on the Inspire and Be Inspired page, or via my YouTube. If it's live, if you want to head on over to the Inspire and Be Inspired page and give us a like, it would make a big difference. And if you wanted to share it as well, or tag one of your friends in a message, again, it does help us get into the line of sight of more people. So thank you. I'm gonna probably slaughter this name, forgive me. Juin Phelan is saying, well done, Phil. I'm not sure if that's a friend of yours or someone who's just watching who says, well done, Phil, and sends a kiss. So I have no idea how to pronounce that. You have to forgive me. So I'll come back to you in a second, Phil. Let's go and talk to Stu, because in harsh contrast to Phil here, you were that heavy, you were that party animal back in the day, as you say, talking about 88, 89 at the Hummingbird, bang on it, as we used to say. You were an unashamed toker back in the day, right? What were you smoking weed from an early age?
I think I probably started smoking hash 14, 15. And then, yeah, it was just, it's funny how they always call it the gateway drug. And at the time you don't, you're like, yeah, whatever, because you don't know anything else. But yeah, it just developed along with alcohol. When I was at school, I come from quite an athletic sort of sports family. Like when I was younger, I ran for Birchfield Harriers. I played football, like county, cricket county, when I was like 11, 12, 13. And then I went to Great Bar Secondary, Great Bar Comp. And then I think around 14, started having first toke, probably first drinks. And that was it. It was just like sacked everything off. And then I started getting into music, buying records. I become a big fan straight away of sort of New Order, Joy Division. And yeah, I think everything with them was about music and getting stoned to music or drinking to music. And that was my association for so long in my life with music. I always loved it. I was big into like finding new bands and stuff like that and going to concerts in Birmingham. I think I went Reading Festival in '89. So I loved it. But I don't know. We all did it, so it was just hand in hand. And like what the Hummingbird was like. It was just, kick out time at the Hummingbird. Everybody was walking around outside, absolutely spangled. There wouldn't be nobody that wasn't.
But in those early days, there were, as you just said, people were consuming drugs, but it was to enhance the music.
Yeah, definitely.
It was also to give you the energy to go through the night as well. That's my earliest memories. It generally was, okay, a little bit of speed to get you through the night. Yeah. And then allegedly some of my friends would say, and maybe a little bit of acid for the visuals, and then it progressed. But then you would find other people as pills came onto the scene, who would be known for wearing it as a badge of honor, how many pills they could have in the night, which was a little bit ludicrous at the time, 6, 7, 8 pills. And like some of us were, or some of them were, struggling to take a half or a one. But we were never really like that, were we?
No. Well, if you think I remember when pills first come on the scene and they were like 25, 30 quid, and like we were probably going Amnesia in Coventry, the Connection Centre, and like Raw and stuff like that. And I remember there was always that conversation, if you buy a pill and if it's a dud and it doesn't work. So, a lot of time we would just stick to what we knew, like you just said, speed and acid. You knew it was going to work. You know what I mean? And it worked pretty quickly. Where I remember standing with some of our friends who had took an E, who like, is it working? I don't know. An hour later, I don't know. I suppose most of the time, suddenly you turn around and you're like, I can tell you it's working definitely by looking at you. But yeah, it was just, yeah, like when I remember sort of Hummingbird first taking acid, and the connection with the music was just euphoric. You just did, you know what I mean? It was completely different to drinking and speed. And for a long part of that period, we didn't drink heavily. You know, you just wouldn't, because you'd be on the dance floor constantly. So you just wouldn't drink. You'd probably go out Friday night, out Saturday night, and then Sunday would be your drink, and maybe Wednesday and a Thursday go in the station in Sutton or something like. Or I used to drink in the Yenton as well. So that would be your drinking, where you're sort of hanging out with the drinkers, and then Friday, Saturday, that was it. You were, you know, in a car going somewhere up and down the country, or you'd be at the Hummingbird or somewhere local. You know, then the Porsche Club started as well. That was another one. So yeah,
it was just the way of life, wasn't it? Now,
yeah.
June
And we all knew where we
has
were going.
confirmed. Sorry, June has confirmed how to pronounce the name. Thank you, and says that I've spent a few weeks going to props while struggling to support my partner through his alcohol addiction. And we have Mr. Barrow joining us, who will be more than familiar with these stories of our early days out and about up Sutton and up the town. Easy Baz. Okay, Phil, so that would run parallel, even though you were a few years after us, that will all run
absolutely.
parallel to your clubbing story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I started going to the really cheesy clubs when I was like 16, 17, sneaking in, got to know through buying records in the local record shop that a friend of mine now, who is one of my best mates, used to run. The doorman always used to be in there buying music. So they'd see me and just like turn a blind eye and I'd get in. But I never used to drink because I was designated driver. Nobody else had a car, and I didn't need anything to have a good time. I would just get there. I might have had, I never used to have a beer, because if I had one, I'd want more. So my thing was I'd always have a lemonade, give me a bit of sugar, a bit of energy, and then I'd just dance for like 4 or 5 hours straight, get a bottle of water. And I'd be all over the place. So started in the cheesy clubs, and I ended up going to the Garage, which was one of the best clubs in Nottingham. And it was a totally different world. Everyone was off their faces, having the times of their life, and you could just enjoy it all with them, whether you were doing anything or not. Nobody was drinking loads, so there was no violence, there was no trouble. Everyone was just really happy, having a brilliant night. Used to go to the Garage, and then that ended up going to the House. Used to go to Beetroot, all the places around town that were decent, put on decent DJs. Saw some of the best DJs in the world, and at the time just was blown away by it all. And that inspired me to want to play tunes and be a DJ. I just loved the music that much.
Well, you made a very good point there. Everything, all of the underground, for want of a better word, the underground clubbing scene was completely different to the Friday and Saturday nights in all of the major cities up and down the country, where it was pure just beer monsters and fighting on the streets, right?
It was, and I didn't feel comfortable. I wanted to go and dance and have a laugh with my mates, and I wanted them to feel safe. And at the time, I was hanging around with a lovely group of girls because they just wanted to go out and dance. All my male mates at college and things like that, they were well into their football, going down the pub and all that kind of stuff. And at the time, for me, I wasn't about that. It didn't interest me. I wanted to go and have a dance and listen to the latest tunes and just have a really cracking night out. So I sort of grew closer to the girls, and I'd be their chauffeur for the night, pick them all up, drop them all off. Their parents were happy as Larry, or whoever they were living was happy as Larry, because they were safe. They trusted me. I got to have a great night out without any trouble or any hassle. It was brilliant. It was absolutely a magical time in my life. Absolutely wonderful.
Wonderful. Well, we say good evening to Neil. Good evening to Leslie. Thanks for passing through. Many people rolling through watching us live. So I'll stay with you, Phil. Where can you pinpoint the start of things going wrong?
I think probably when my mother-in-law died, and that was quite a sad time. Still is a sad time, and we just couldn't get over it. It was such a shock. It came out of the blue, and to cope with that, me personally, I used to have a drink. I didn't have a lot, but I would feel the need to come home at the end of the day and just go, I need to decompress. I need to have a drink. I did that for years. Didn't really, and we'd go on a lot of holidays, and we'd try and have as much fun as possible, and we'd have really big nights out. And then I think, whoa, that was heavy, and I need to not do that again for a while.
Were the children on the scene then? So what
No,
kind of time?
No, so this was about 2 years before they were born. So we were traveling a lot, seeing the world. We did New York, we went to the Maldives, we've been to Portugal, we did Ibiza loads. I was DJing Ibiza. That's where I met my wife.
And married at this point?
Yes, so married, just got married 9 months after we got married, happiest day of our lives. Age 62, my mother-in-law just had a heart attack and sadly died. So big shock to the family. My wife's a Geordie, she's from Newcastle, so obviously big drinking culture up there. Everyone likes a drink, and it's kind of the done thing and the norm. And I think looking back, it's taken me to this 18 months to analyze my own life and try and pinpoint these moments. We had a brief chat yesterday. I'll say it probably got bad, 4 years ago, but there was little elements of it over those 10 years where the alarm bells were ringing, but they weren't ringing loud enough for me to take any notice. Other people might have said a few things to me like, you need to take it easy there a bit, dude. You're caning it a bit. And I would slow it down, and I would take a step back, and I would just rein it in and have a week off or whatever. And in my mind at the time, I think I was kind of saying, well, I've had a week off, so I can't have a problem with it because I can go a week without alcohol. That's what's the problem? And then I get back on it again and all that. And I never used to drink every day ever. I was addicted to the gym, like Stu was saying earlier. I've got an addictive personality, and I was addicted to fitness. I go to the gym twice a day, try and stay in shape. And that was my thing. I never used to drink in the week. Slowly, as life changes, you get a bit older. You have dinner, you share a bottle of wine, you have a glass of wine together, and it sort of creeps up on you out of nowhere. And then gorgeous boys came along, amazing little guys, and obviously you don't drink loads when they're little because you can't. You got to look after them, keep them alive, and it's very stressful having twins. And obviously we're like new parents, don't know any different, haven't had any children before. So that period was okay. And then obviously you have a few knocks over the years, business problems, health problems, life problems. And it just got on top of me where I started to not want to face it. And I'd been DJing 3 nights a week for years, holding residencies at some of the best venues in Nottingham, having a great time. And I used to drive to every gig. I never used to drink because there's no point going and doing a gig and getting paid and then spending it at the bar. No. So I used to drive, park, I'd get in my car at the end of the night and I'd be straight home. And then when the kids were born, I couldn't DJ as much, obviously not fair on my wife. So I'd always be there looking after them. And that's what I'd probably do once every 3 months. And on those nights, I'd see it as a night out. It wasn't work. I'd probably be DJing with a mate of mine, or maybe do it by myself, but people would pop in and they'd all want to buy me a drink because they're not seeing me for a while. So I started to drink at gigs. And I think that had a knock-on effect as well. And also my confidence levels, because I wasn't playing regularly, were quite low. Even though I've been DJing 20 years, I felt I needed a drink to get over my nerves. And that progressively got worse as the time went on over the years, where some gigs I would have 3/4 of a bottle of fizz before I went out. But because I'd been drinking, I was stone cold sober to outside appearances. It calmed my nerves, but I was already nearly a bottle down before the night had begun. And then people would be plying me with drinks because they'd not seen me for ages. And you'd be like, yeah, that's fine. And I'd play a good set. And then by the end of the night, I was absolutely hammered. But because I wasn't doing it often, it was like, well, it was a night out. Don't worry about it. You don't see it as a problem. And then COVID came along, and COVID really did spin me out quite a lot. And I was furloughed from work. I was at home, obviously, all the time with the kids and my wife. And my wife went and got a full-time job, which was brilliant. And turned around and said, "You've got to homeschool the kids." And we'd both been sort of getting through lockdown as best we could, and you can't do a lot. So as a lot of my friends did, we used to all text each other and go, "Have you had your first beer yet? Are you on the fizz?" Blah, blah, blah. And it became a bit of a standing joke that at 4:00 in the afternoon, everyone had a glass in their hand, watching the briefing, waiting for Boris to tell us that we can't do anything at all. And where a lot of people reined it in as they realized that they were having an issue with it, I didn't. And so I would start drinking and then just carry on because there was nothing else to do. And yeah, it became a bit of a problem. And then when my beautiful wife got a full-time job and the kids were off school, she said, "You're going to have to homeschool the kids." And that was a real wake-up call of, I've got to be on Zoom every morning at 9:00, not looking hungover and disheveled. And I didn't relish the thought of homeschooling twin boys aged 6 with a banging hangover. And at that point, I couldn't remember what it felt like not to be hungover. I'd probably had a drink every day for the best part of 9 months, maybe a year. Before that, I probably drank nearly every day for the previous couple of years, but I always used to do Stoptober to prove that I wasn't an alcoholic or had a problem with alcohol. I'd always attempt a bit of dry January. I'd always have a week off here, week off there. And in my mind, that was enough to say, "Oh, you don't have a problem with alcohol. You've just let your guard down a bit and you've got a bit silly." And that wasn't the case. And the hardest part when you have a problem with alcohol is admitting that you have a problem with alcohol. And it took me years to actually admit that to myself, that it's not a friend of mine at all. And it's something that is negative and needs to go.
Okay, well, let me pause you there, if I may.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, of course.
Because that was really commendable of you to be so frank about your journey as to where you got to that point. Stu, I can see you from the corner of my eye nodding along in agreement with a hell of a lot of that. Do you wanna also tell us your own journey of
I was oblivious to everything. I thought I was made of steel. We spoke about earlier, drugs. I've done everything, pushed the limits quite heavily. With alcohol, I probably knew there was a problem the last 3 years.
Would you ever say you had a problem with drugs as well, or not really?
Drugs I could kind of take, like, I've done, when I say I've done every drug, apart from the new ones, I've been involved in everything from
the trendy ones.
Well, like the new ones, I don't know what the kids take now, but your mainstays: coke, heroin, crack. When we was in America, we was doing a lot of PCP, crystal meth, and I never had a fear of anything. And it was quite funny how the Americans, we would go to parties because we had the record store and it was really big record store. We'd go to parties and they couldn't grasp, like they either did one or the other. They drank or took drugs. We would sit in the kitchen and be doing both, and we're doing both really heavily. And this is hanging out with like DIY and other people that came to town. And I was oblivious to all that. I just thought, I've got, there's no problem, there's no issue, I'm fine. And then I got to London, and London, obviously, cocaine central. I was doing shitloads of that, ridiculous amounts, in the week, all the time. Everybody was. And of course, you're drinking with it. So the drinking's sort of taken a back. So it's just part of it. So you're not seeing what the drink's doing to you or how it's accumulating or sort of building on you. And then I left and came to Cambridge. And of course, you can get drugs here, but they're not very good. So I was quite easy just to ignore them. You know what I mean? So I didn't, and I stopped. Didn't do coke, no pills, nothing like that. All that had gone. The good drugs from America, obviously, I left in America. But drinking, I think then drinking became more of a thing because there was nothing else to do. There was no other stimulant. There was nothing else to give you that wobble effect and that. And that's
there's
what
a
I was
family.
always.
There's a family of your own on the scene as well throughout all of these, right?
Yeah. I've got 3 kids, but my first daughter, who's nearly 30, that was from when I lived in Scotland. She lives in London now, and I've got 2 kids now, 13 and 6. So, yeah, they've seen it all, and they've seen the worst sides of it. Nothing violent or anything like that, but they, you know, my oldest son, well, my only son, George, you know, watched me deteriorate, especially 2019, 2020, 2021, when, you know, again, I say I was oblivious to it. I knew I was drinking too much. But again, this same attitude of like, I'm fine. It doesn't matter. You know, and I'm not ashamed, you know, I'd quite easily on days off open a bottle of wine at 8 o'clock in the morning, some days, you know, and I would drink it within an hour. Just, you know, and obviously this is part of depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. And there was lots of stuff going on. So that was my, you know, and to be honest, if there'd have been decent drugs around, I'd have probably done them as well. You know, I was battling, I was self-medicating basically with alcohol to deal with demons, depression, anxiety, and then filling myself with another depressant, which is bringing you even further down. And from there, you know, it's all hindsight now. You wake up the next day, the problems are still there, the shit's still there. So go get another bottle of wine and start drinking again. And I still make a lot of money off the job I do. I could function, so I was a functioning alcoholic, you know, but I was drink driving and stuff like that. And of course, I just had this thing in my head that I was made of steel, and I got away with so much in my life, you know, good, you know, bad stuff and that, to do with drugs, to do with other stuff, that I just, you know, I needed that. And even when I got 2 quite severe wake-up calls, 2020, 21, I still carried on drinking. That was my trigger. That was the go-to thing. It just shut everything out for the few hours. And then I'd come sort of tour a bit, do a bit of work, because I did a lot of work from home. And my next thing was like, right, I'm going to go get a bottle of gin. And I'd literally go get a bottle of gin. And I'd do a bottle of gin in a night.
Well,
Wow.
I'll ask the question, but obviously you can answer or skip past it. You mentioned 2 wake-up calls, or 2 major moments. Do you want to elaborate on that, or would you rather?
So one of them was I was in a motor accident, and I was over the limit by a long way, and I was basically facing prison. And by the backing of a lot of close people to me, the backing, one of the companies I work for, one of the boss is a close friend. I had enough. You know, while I'm doing this, I'm raising money for charity for kids, youth centres in Hackney through construction companies. I'm raising a lot of money, and people were just shocked when the accident happened. They were like, "What?" You know, some people knew there was stuff going on, but nobody knew to the extent of where I was at. And the second one was turning up at my daughter's nursery and then refusing me to have my daughter because I was intoxicated.
Wow. Visibly intoxicated.
You know, and that's you know, their mom was called, and I didn't even know their mom was called until she walked up the road, and we split up by then. And she walked up the road and she went, you know, we've always had, even now we have a relationship, we're not together, we're good friends because we focus on the kids. And she just said, Stuart, just stop fucking up. You're going to kill yourself. But she had to walk away from it. She goes, nothing to do with you, but affecting the kids' lives and everybody else's lives. And I still drank after that. And literally on the 23rd of December last year, I probably drank the day before, probably most of the day, probably most of the week, getting up, waiting for Sainsbury's to open, go down there and buy 2 bottles of wine, and by 10 o'clock be smashed off my head. But because I'm working from home, nobody can see me and I'm still getting the work done, and then just keep drinking through. I was still riding my bike. I was still sort of functioning alcoholic, as I was called. On the 23rd, I just says, I'm not drinking today. And I'd done, like Phil, I used to do stints where I'd do the first 100 days of the year and not drink. The only reason I was doing the 100 days was to get to the 100th day, fucking go to the pub and get absolutely hammered.
to celebrate.
So I was not using my tools correctly. I was not because I didn't know that I had the tools. I didn't know what the tools were for sobriety and that, and we'll get into that. But so everything had a finish point, an end point. I was like, so I could prove I could do it. Was I only doing it because there was an end point? And then it was like the summer's here. 100 days is from January. 100 days is the calendar start of the summer. And where I live, it's all beer gardens and pubs in the countryside. So that was it. Bang, straight into it. And then going into London for work visits and drinking in King's Cross and drinking on the train back.
Wow. So in a perpetual cycle. Okay.
Yeah, so I abused it completely. I abused alcohol completely as, I was medicating myself for depression.
Mm-hmm. So we'll come back to your rock bottom moment. Pugs is saying, I can relate to parts of that story. Mark, good evening, mate. Thanks for passing through. He says he relates. Keep the faith. Online meetings are great. Good luck with the recovery, everyone. It's a long path. Cliff Williams says, good evening. Hi, Cliff. Thanks for passing through as always. Stateside Dimitri, good evening, my friend. He says, ask Stuart to DJ. He'll smash it. I do know, my friend. I do know. That's Mr. Bronson passing through, giving you some love, Stu.
Thank you.
Respect. Pleasure to have you with us. And Mark Wilkinson passes through and says, word up. You mentioned Mark as in your journey when we were talking very briefly yesterday, Phil, as being one of the people to start planting the seed in your head about tell us the story, because you'll put it better than I can.
Yeah, so I went to Ibiza in 2008 and 9 and 10, 11 and 12, but 2009 was a big year. I used to fly out and I'd do 4-day stints and cram in as many gigs as I could. So do, Orange Corner and try and play SV and all places like that. And I went over, and Mark he had some gigs at El Divino for one of the brands over there, and he basically said, try and help me get the coaches full that leave from the Orange Corner. If you can get some people on it, you can help and share the set with me, the last set for 3 till 5 or whatever it was. And I did. I played my tunes at the Orange Corner, and in between mixes I'd run around the tables. You enjoying the tunes? You want a ticket for tonight? And I'd just graft and get people on the coaches. And he stuck to his word, and I ended up playing El Divino 3 or 4 times with him, and we played one of the last times it was ever open. It was a magical time. But at the time, he was going through his journey, and I ended up staying with him because I got offered a load more gigs. I worked for my dad, and I phoned my dad and said, I'm not coming back because I've been offered some really good gigs, like dream gigs, lifetime gigs that I've always wanted to do. Had nowhere to stay. And he was living in a house in sort of the hills out of town. He said, "Oh, just come and stay with me. If you can chuck me a bit of cash towards the rent, that'd be great. Don't worry about it if you can't." And he was stone cold sober. And we used to go out, me and a couple of my mates who were with me, and we'd stop at this little coffee shop and ice cream place, and he'd have a coffee. And we'd be like, "What are you having a coffee for? It's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night." And he'd be like, "Yeah, you'll see." And he'd have a coffee, and we'd be all straight on the beers and everything else. And as the night went on, we'd get progressively worse and smashed out of our faces. And he'd be on it, chatting to everyone, focused, amazing. And I look back at that time now, and I was a bit younger than Mark. I'm 46 now. I think he's just turned 50 or early 50s. And I couldn't see the point of what he was doing. I was like, you're over in Ibiza, you're having the time of your life, you're running nights, you're doing this, you're doing that. Why are you not getting battered, and really enjoying it? And now looking back, he was ahead of the game, And one of my friends who I've known since I went to school, since I was 9 years old, he was out on that journey with me in Ibiza. And he ended up coming back. And after that, having talked to Mark, he quit alcohol. He just cut it out. He said, I'm done with the hangovers. It's ruining my anxiety. It's ruining my life. He's one of the most successful people I've ever met, Anthony is. And he just stopped. And we all, for years, ripped him to bits. I feel really bad about it now, but was just like, really? After what we've just experienced, we've had an amazing time in Ibiza, and you're going to just knock in the alcohol in the head. He was like, I don't need it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a Mark Wilkinson, and like the phrase was coined. And to this day, and now he's like, I told you, I told you so. I knew you'd get there eventually.
That peer pressure is a bastard. I can tell
it
you.
is.
All those people out there are saying, "Come on, have another drink, have a shot."
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
That's
terrible.
What's the worst that can happen? You're on holiday.
You don't know what people are going through when that happens.
No. And I didn't even, because at that time I was going to the gym twice a day. So at Mark's house, with me and my mate Jamie, I was with Jamie and Anthony, and we'd do workouts and stuff on the biggest hangovers of our life. We'd do crunches and press ups and everything. And Mark would be laughing at us, going, "God, you look like death. You must feel like death. You're still pushing it. Fair play to you." And we just didn't think anything of it. We were just, silly guys. I'd recently split up with my partner after 7 and a bit years, so I was having just as much fun as I possibly could. I was cramming it into every single day, living life to the full. I went through a year of basically saying yes to everything. If I got offered a gig, yep, I'll do it. Doesn't matter where it is, I'm doing it. I used to drive to London. I'd play the gig, drive all the way back. I'd do everything. And then every now and again, I'd have a really big party night out.
Well, you thought you were living your best life.
I was. I thought I was, because I was doing these amazing venues with these amazing people and having a great time. But the hangovers, it's still, 4 or 5 day hangovers and having to get back on it. And the funniest part of that trip was we went to space on the guys last night. They were flying back and I was going to stay on for a bit longer. And we went to space and we all agreed that we would not take any money out with us. No credit cards, nothing. We'd take enough. Someone to sort us out a guest list to get in, and we'd take enough for like 3 waters. So take 40 euros.
Quid.
Yeah. It was about 40 euros. At the time, I think it was about 11 euros a bottle of water. And we purposely said, everyone put all your credit cards and everything in the safe so you can't go mad and get on it, because we all felt like death. And that night I bumped into my wife in the middle of the dance floor in space for the first time. And it was her 30th birthday. And for the first time ever, I'm like, can I buy you a drink? And I'm thinking, oh my God, I've got no money to buy her a drink. I've got enough money to buy 1 bottle of water left. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll get you a drink. So I got her a beer. I managed to go up to Jamie and go, can I borrow 5 euros? I need to buy a beer now. And he was like, you're not allowed to buy beer. And so I bought her a Peroni. And we swapped numbers, and the rest of the day is history. But that night we were determined to go out and have a sober night out. And it was one of the best nights out of the holiday, because we weren't feeling the pressure of getting hammered, and we weren't rushing before we went out, because obviously everything's really expensive in Ibiza. You front load before you go out. If you're in an all-inclusive hotel, you bosh it, you get out, and then you slow down. We were so hungover all the time. We're like, we've got to have a night off and just give it a rest. And it turned out to be magical.
Let me put the break. I mean, that's a fantastic story, and a true love story. And again, another part of a whole life that could be captured in a full interview at another point. But I want to put the brakes on that and bring us back down to the reason why we are here.
Yeah.
The moment that you realised you had maybe hitting rock bottoms, probably overstating it, but you said, right, now this has got to stop. And so you said on that date, was it January 21st that it had, did you say January 21st?
Mine was January the 16th.
January 16th.
Yeah, it was the 16th because my wife was starting her new job on the 25th of January, and she stopped drinking on New Year's Day. We
January 21 is what I've written down.
Yeah, January 21. That's right. Yeah, January 21. So we partied New Year's Eve with the kids, had a fair amount to drink, not so much that we couldn't look after them, but enjoyed ourselves. Woke up New Year's Day, obviously feeling rough, but you get through it. Everyone's done it when they've got kids, put the kids first. And she turned around and said, I've got this job. I am not drinking through the whole of January. And she used to do dry January all the time because she lived in London for 10 years. And it was a sort of thing down there. January is the worst month. It's so depressing. So they'd just go out and go to go to the Tate and see some culture and everything else. And she used to do it every year until she met me. And then she did it, I think, once before the kids came along and managed all the way through January because there was always a birthday or something. But anyway, so she said, I'm not drinking. And I sat for 2 weeks drinking by myself, trying to get her to have a glass, I was always an alcohol pusher. Any of my friends will tell you that you come in this house, the first thing I'll say is, what can I get you to drink? And you can have anything you want at all. Champagne, you can have the best vodkas, whatever, it's all there. Knock yourself out, no expenses spared. She said, I'm not drinking. I've told you I'm not drinking. Stop offering it me. You're doing my head in. And after 2 weeks of drinking by myself, I was bored because it's no fun drinking by yourself. It's such a lonely experience. And my anxiety was so high at the time, I just felt like if I carry on drinking like this, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and not want to get out of bed. And I've got too much responsibility and too much to do. Even though I was furloughed and everything else, I thought, I've got 2 kids, I've got to homeschool them, I've got to be presentable, and I've got to be on my game. And she said, I'm just not drinking. I'm going to go into the Zoom meetings fresh-faced and fancy-free. And I went, okay. And I woke up on the 16th was the last time I had a drink, I think it was, or the 15th. And I woke up and I just said to her, I'm going to have 3 months off alcohol. And she laughed at me, absolutely hysterically laughed, and said, you will never do it. You struggle to do Stoptober. And I was the same as Stu. I'd do Stoptober to prove to myself that I wasn't an alcoholic or had a problem with alcohol. I'm not quite sure I like the term alcoholic, and that, I'm still trying to work that out. But I'd get to the end and be like, yeah, I've done it. Let's get smashed. And you'd be like, oh, God. And everyone would roll their eyes and go, yeah, you've done 30 days, big whoop. And most people can do that without even blinking, or a lot of people can. A lot of people can't. But for me, it was a massive achievement that I'd done 30 days. So I said, if I've done 30 days, I'm going to set myself 3 months. And I looked in the mirror that morning and I'd put on 2.5 stone. I looked about 55. I was bloated, massive bags under my eyes. And I've always looked younger than my age and always got away with it. And I looked in there and thought, you look 10 years older than you are. What are you playing at? And at that point, Anna and my wife, Anna, she looked at me and she was like, you are on a slippery slope. You are, you're getting to the point where you're not going to come out of this unless you do something.
I am keen to get to the positive end of this story. But I also, I have been thinking while I've been listening to you, were you I wouldn't have thought you were an aggressive drunk, but you were a moody drunk. Did it affect the children? What were the negatives associated to you being a drunk?
I was never moody or aggressive around the kids or around my wife. I'd be moody and aggressive online. I found everything because I was so angry at myself, I would see things online and take real offense to it, and then just get into these stupid spats with people, some people who I didn't know, some people who I did, and I'd voice my opinion without even thinking that it's going to cause massive havoc. And that became a real problem as on top of the drinking, because Anna would go, oh my God, you're still arguing, because I couldn't let it go. So it's never aggressive, never angry. Obviously, you have your arguments and you have your moments and things like that. But I've never been in a fight. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm a lover, not a fighter. And luckily, the children never saw me, stupidly drunk or anything like that, because I'd never get in that state around them. I'd always, if I was doing that, I'd go away for the weekend or go out for the night and stay somewhere else. But it got to the point where I was walking around the house, 5, 6 o'clock at night, getting home from work and things like that, or getting out, coming back from shopping or whatever. And the first thing I'd do is go to the fridge and I'd open a bottle if there wasn't one open. And this was at 5 o'clock. Never done that before. I've never drank in the day, always it's never been a thing where I needed to get up in the morning and have a drink like that. I saw myself as, if I don't need to drink in the day, I'm not an alcoholic. It doesn't make any difference. If you've got a problem with alcohol, it doesn't matter when you drink. It's how much you drink and how fast I could down a bottle and a half, 2 bottles of fizz before 8 o'clock some nights and be perfectly fine. Bath the kids, get them to bed and all the rest of it. My tolerance got so high that for me to get drunk and be a little bit tipsy took a lot. And on a night out, people would be like, wow, dude, you've polished off 2 bottles of Prosecco. You've only been here like hour and a half. Are you all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'd be like, absolutely fine. But because alcohol messes with your head so badly, and I didn't understand any of this, and the only reason I understand more of it now is through reading and educating myself. I made a conscious decision that when I quit drinking, I would start reading every night. So I downloaded and bought loads of books on it, like the Sober Diaries and Alcohol Explained and things like that. And the more I read, the more I understood it. So after about 6 weeks of into it, and it was a tough 6 weeks, you get the withdrawals and you get the shakes and you have the headaches and all the rest of it, I started to understand it. And as I started to understand it for the first time ever, I actually started thinking that I might never drink again. But it took me to feel so low that I possibly couldn't get out of bed and be a dad to the kids. It never happened, but I thought about, whoa, if I carry on, that's where I'm headed. It could be the possibility that Anna might have enough and not support me, and she eventually might walk out the door. It never got to that point, luckily, because all that stuff was playing on my mind. And it was a case of, do I want that next drink, or do I want to spend time with my family and enjoy life? And we have had an amazing life, but we've had some really awful low moments through family trauma, that kind of stuff. And me being drunk didn't help ever. Alcohol and me, I was never aggressive or nasty, but I used to just get upset and angry inside. So I shut down and keep everything bottled up, and then just, keep it and go lower and lower and lower and lower. And the more you drink, the more you need to drink to feel normal. And it's just, you end up here and then you low, 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 low. And it's just ridiculous. And it creeps up on you. You can be fine one day and go, oh, I don't feel too bad today. I'm great. And the next minute it hits you like a sledgehammer and you feel totally worthless. What's the point to doing anything? Why does anyone even want to spend time with you? You go through all those things in your mind and it's not happening. You just think it's happening. Some of it might have been happening on a very low level. You might have had a comment said here and a comment said there. But because your mind is so screwed up because of the alcohol and the depression and the anxiety, like Stuart was saying, you can't see how good your life is. You think your life's terrible. Mm-hmm. And people look at your life and go, you have an amazing life. You've got a beautiful wife, you've got amazing kids, you DJ and you do this, you do that. And at the time, my anxiety was so bad, I couldn't play gigs. I would make excuses and pass my gigs to all of my friends. And I used to run like a mini DJ agency free of charge, just as a favor to all the bars I used to work in. And I would put myself on the rotor once every 4 or 5 weeks. And 50% of those gigs, I would last minute pull out because my nerves were so shot. I was like, I will not play a good set. And because I know I'm not going to play a good set, I'm not even going to risk turning up. And I'd never been like that in my entire life.
Wow.
Nerves is great because it gives you the edge when you turn up to a gig. You know that. You're one of the most successful DJs here. So, but when you're so depressed and so low, and you have to have nearly a bottle of fizz or something just to get you straight, it's not your time. And luckily I knew, and my friends would cover for me and they'd play a great gig and it was great. And then obviously COVID hit, nobody could DJ and do anything. And I used to do radio shows. I've always done a radio show for House Nation and stuff, and I've done that since 2007. And we did it all online. But to do my radio shows online, not even on Zoom, like with no one seeing me, I would have to have a drink just to take the edge off my nerves during the first part of COVID. And I was playing to people who couldn't see me. I wasn't in front of anyone. I was in front of my wife and kids, but I'd have to have a drink. And at that point, Anna was like, "Oh no, you're not going to have a drink again, are you?" It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, "Yeah, but that's
So
what time my set time is. I'm
it was
nervous."
starting to roll in, and Anna
Yeah.
was noticing and trying to support. Okay, well, I want to start hearing about the books, and I want to start hearing about the positives, but I'm going to come to
Yeah.
Stu
Okay.
and hear from Stu. So, you know, a lot of that I'm sure you relate to, but let's start hearing then about the positive steps that you made, and where how you found the strength, and you know what the first step was.
Yeah, well, I'm still I don't know what happened on the 23rd. Whether it was just me, there was no trigger, nothing happened. Like the bad things had happened that year, but way before that. I just the 23rd was like, right, I'm not going to drink, and then I got it in my head, right, I'm not going to drink Christmas and New Year. I didn't, and it just kept on snowballing. Then through January, February, and then the notion started to come. You know what? I don't think I want to ever drink again. I'd done AA, I'd done NA. It didn't work for me. AA didn't work for me. I'm not religious, and I know it's not religious now, but its roots and its sort of teachings are born out of Christianity, and I'm very fearful of God and how man contrives that to control people. So that was a no-no. But what I learned from them meetings, sitting down in a room full of people, and I thought my story was bad. Believe me, I've heard some absolute horrendous stories. You know, I've sat next to people who have been told multiple times by doctors in a hospital, we can't do any more for you. You're going to die. You know, and when you sit next to somebody who probably even now, even though they could be 10 years sober, they've done that much damage to themselves. It is not just mentally, but it's physically impacted their life and probably shortened their life and stopped them doing a lot of stuff because they're inside, whatever. They're not critical, but they've just caused irrelevant, you know, not irrelevant,
Irreparable.
Yeah, it's done. But they still go to these meetings and they still, you know, and the one thing that's why I can sit here and tell you the worst cases, or I can tell you the stuff that I've done, and I have no fear in saying it. I don't hide anything, because I think that's, until you're honest with yourself, then you're not going to be at peace with yourself. Whatever it is controlling you, or your addiction, whatever it is, once you've given it up, I personally think you've got to be cathartic. You've got to let it out. You've got to be able to stand there. Like Phil said about calling an alcoholic and being stuck with that. So I'm quite happy. I just say to people, I'm an alcoholic who doesn't drink alcohol. And people will stand there and sort of go, well, how can you be an alcoholic who doesn't drink alcohol? Because you don't know my story. If you knew my story, you would understand. But you can be an alcoholic and not drink alcohol. And that's AA teaches you that. So I went to all these meetings and I took little bits from them, and the bits I didn't like I threw away. I did a lot of stuff online, a bit the same as Phil. I got a guy called Sober Dave who's really good, who's well known, whose own story is horrendous, who's doing really well now. And there's lots of others. And then I started building my own story and how does it work for me? And I don't know it. I don't know it. And I'm hoping something comes to light. I lost my mum this year. It didn't affect me. It didn't make me drink. It was inevitable. She got to that age, and it was kind of a cathartic, peaceful passing, and it was a happy sort of time. I know people might not see it that way. But this year, I've just built on it. But I've stuck to, and I'll swear by this, and anybody who needs help, I would say to them, 24 hours. Don't complicate it. Make it as simple as you possibly can. You start in the morning and you say, I'm not going to drink today, or I'm not going to take a drug today, whatever it is, and just get through the day. If the day starts getting difficult, break it down to half a day, break it down to 3 hours, break it down to an hour. If you feel like you want to have a drink, I sort of mentor people now. I've got a few people that come to me, and I'm sort of helping them get through sobriety, which is cathartic as well. That helps me. That's a big positive, because that reinforces what you're doing and reminds you of what you're doing, and you're also helping someone. I say to them, if they send me a message going, oh, I'm having a bit of a nightmare, or, you know, I say, right, find yourself a job to do for an hour, hoover your flat, whatever it is. For that hour, stop thinking about drink or whatever it is you're thinking of taking. And is there a job you've been putting off? Just do it. And then that's that hour gone. And then think of something else. And then slowly the thoughts will leave your brain. You know, sometimes they don't, but usually I find they do. So I like to stick to the 24, and I still do the 24 hours now. I wake up every morning and go, I didn't drink yesterday, you know, and I'm coming up 11 months now. And it's just an easy way. I tell everyone just to simplify it, and believe me when I say my life in the last 11 months, I've had a fantastic life, and I don't knock anything that I've done. And I've been really lucky to go the places I've gone, be with the people I've been. And I don't really regret anything I've done. I wish I could have stopped drinking a couple of years back, because I wouldn't have obviously had the car accident, the issue with my daughter at nursery. But they're done, they're history. You're learning AA and that. What happened yesterday happened yesterday. There's nothing you can do about it. You can learn off it, but just put it away. It's gone. And I live my life sort of by that. I'm very in the moment, in the day, and in tomorrow. What happened yesterday, if it was a bad thing, it's done now. There's nothing you can do about it. Just move on. Don't sit on it and don't, oh, God, I should have. It's too late. It's gone. If it's still affecting your life, then work out how you're going to change it in the future. Mm-hmm. But my life in the last 11 months it's not, I'm not a millionaire. It's not like fanfares everywhere and stuff like that, but it's really good. I've got my no anxiety. I don't have depression. I can help people. I'm helping people.
You are very vocal. You are very vocal at times, and I can see you do want to help people. You say it's cathartic. It definitely gives you a sense of pride, doesn't it, to be able to share your story, knowing how you are helping others.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's, you know, you should. Not everyone should do it. Some people, you know, I don't want to talk about it. Fine. For me, I think that's the wrong way to approach it. I think you've got to make peace with them demons. You've got to sort of understand that they happened, and there's nothing. They're bad, but turn them into a positive. Use them to be a positive force. We've all had bad things. We've all done stupid things. Okay, they're all at different levels. But until you make peace with it, and this is like people now who may be thinking, watching this, or people have come across them thinking of giving up alcohol, I say to them, you've got to make peace with it. You've got to want to do it. And I think a lot of people do, but as we spoke about before, there's stigma and that about it, and people go, oh, you know, you're giving up alcohol, or I don't need to, I'm not an alcoholic. I think most people are alcoholics to a different extent. We are socially conditioned to accept alcohol, and it's a poison. And I would never preach to people that, you know, I've gone out since being sober. I've gone to 2 parties. I actually DJ'd at one of them in Brixton this summer, and I was stone cold sober, and I had people coming up to me, people I knew from America, people I knew from London, and going like, wow, how are you doing it? And I'm like, because it's just better. It's so much better than being drunk. It's so much better than the hangover tomorrow. It's so much better than, I went back to a house party and they were all on it, and I was there till 5 a.m, and then got an Uber to King's Cross to get my train home. And I was quite happily sitting over there with them while they were doing everything. And, you know, it's quite funny because then you see it from the outside. You're like, you know, the fly on the wall. And you see how people, like I'd have people repeating asking me the same question, like literally 30 times, one after the other. And you just, but they're my friends and I've known them for years. And I just laugh and go, I've already answered this. But I wouldn't get frustrated. I wouldn't get angry. You know, the drunk Stuart probably wouldn't, or the doped up or the drugged up or the high, wouldn't have noticed that the same questions are being asked. But if he would have, I'd have probably nearly bit their head off or said something funny.
You'd have answered
kind of abusive or funny,
times.
you know, just to shut them up, to run them down. So for me, and I would say to anyone, it's you can, everyone, look, do whatever you like. It's your own life and that. But life isn't boring without alcohol. Life is actually far better. And you don't miss anything. And once you get over that peer pressure and you can function that in your brain and be at peace with it. I still go out now and people go, are you really sober? And I'm like, yeah. And they go, you sure you don't want to drink? I'm like, no, I don't need one.
Man.
I'm fine. And I'm having a better laugh than or as good a laugh as they're having. And yeah, I just, you know, that's my only regret. I didn't know that a few years back. Well, I did. I didn't act on it, or didn't act on it strongly enough. But, you know, I mean, I'm the advocate of, you know, alcohol. It's socially accepted. It's not. There's not enough research done on it. It's kind of pushed to the side. You know, the alcoholics, the tramp, or the, you know, or like I was, the bloke standing in the queue at 8 o'clock in the morning in Sainsbury's with 2 bottles of wine, or whatever you decide or the media perceives it to be. But you sit down once you're sober, and Phil will probably tell you this, you watch on TV and you watch around it, how many times alcohol is pushed at us, subliminally, without people even knowing that it is.
Absolutely.
That's what makes it acceptable. It makes it hugely acceptable. And that's where people get afraid to turn around and go, you know what? I think I need to stop drinking. Usually people get to that point where, like me and Phil, where inside you're just crumbling, inside you're in pieces. And some people don't. I've lost a lot of friends through alcohol, through taking their own life, or through, you know, their bodies have just said, that's it, we're done. So I think it's important that I would never preach to anyone, but I would happily sit down with absolutely anyone, whether it's face-to-face, online, on the telephone, and tell them your life. I'm not saying you're going to win the lottery or you're going to get this or you're going to get that, but your life will be far better. Even if you only go to the pub and will only go on a Saturday and Sunday, have 3 or 4 pints and this and that. But if you're only having 3 or 4 pints, why are you drinking at all? That's another thing I don't understand. I drank to get shit-faced, let's be honest. I didn't do it for any other reason. Yeah, I got used to the taste of it. And yeah, but you drink to get loosened up, have a laugh, then you get more drunk, then you're this, then maybe the drugs come out, and that's that. It's all about changing your
relationship, changing your relationship with alcohol.
Yeah, and you change your relationship with everyone else, and then people just say, well, I can't go out unless I get hammered, or we can't go out unless we get drunk, or unless we have one drink. And I've got mates who I cycle with, and we'll stop at a pub, and they'll have a drink, and I'm like, why are you having 1 pint?
Yeah.
I've guys friends who I go out with, I'm only having 3. I'm like, and I don't drink, and I'm the sober person going, that's a waste of time though. If I was drinking, man, I'd have 10.
Well, I've been told recently, we shouldn't pass judgment on others, but I do see people on their holidays sat in the airport, at the pub in the airport at 9 a.m. with a pint on the table, and I think, what's that all about?
It's a rite of passage, though, isn't it? That's what it's
Well,
saying.
it is
a rite of passage.
But
as well, I'm on
that's by
holiday,
the by.
so holiday starts now at the airport, and everybody else is doing it, so why shouldn't I do it? And it's just like, again, it's that social, it's media driven, it's social driven, it's you know, it used to be the same as smoking. You know, before they banned smoking, before, you know, the links with cancer and that. Nobody, you know, everybody smoked. You know, I remember going in pubs and everybody smoked in pubs, and you didn't think. It wasn't until they put the big health scare on it that it got demonized. They'll never demonize alcohol, but they'll demonize everything else.
There's too much money involved. Okay, well, let me just go to the people who are still with us. We've still got quite a few people watching, listening. I say every week, listening intently. Baz says, "Keep it up, Stu. You're doing well, mate." Julie's been with us all evening on YouTube. She says, "Well done." Ian Dads, who's no stranger to this journey, he says, "Well done, lads." And Pugwash Neil McLean says, "It's been his world for the last 30 odd years, being the sober one." You're changing that now, though, ain't you, mate, of a morning when you're talking on the radio. But we won't go there. So a lot of people listening enjoying the story. We've been chatting for an hour and 10 minutes. We're going to get to your part of your journey now. And thank you, Stu. Thank you so much for being so open and frank with that. So, Phil, you mentioned about books. You mentioned about, the beginnings for you.
Yeah, so I decided to post everything on social media. My wife, she quit, and she just didn't tell anyone that she'd quit. She did it because and she never said she was going to quit for good. She just said, "I'm going to quit for this job." And I thought, I need to hold myself accountable. And when I did Stoptober in the past, I always ran a charity thing to raise money and all that. And this time I was like, I'm not going to do that, but I am going to post every month. And I posted my weight loss journey and I posted my sobriety journey. So the first month it was like, woohoo, I mean, it's 28 days, great, or 30 days, whatever. And then I hit 3 months and I'd lost about 9 pounds, nearly a stone in weight. And I thought, I feel okay. I feel good. And I was reading some books, and I read Sober Diaries, Alcohol Explained, The Unexpected Joys of Being Sober. And there's a lot in it. And there's the stuff that I didn't understand, which probably Stu may not have understood either. It takes 90 days for your brain to sort of get rid of all the chemical imbalances and all that kind of stuff, and sort your dopamine levels out, your serotonin levels, and everything else out. And I never knew that. And so every time I'd done Stoptober, I was like, I don't feel the benefit. And looking back through my Facebook feed, I was like, I don't feel any better. What's the point?
Yeah.
When I hit 90 days, I felt so different and so good. I'd lost weight. I was sleeping better. I've always been a terrible sleeper, but I was getting a good 4 or 5 hours in a row, which for me was unheard of. I was exercising every day, got addicted to exercise. And because COVID was going on and we couldn't go out, we bought a running machine just before lockdown happened, and I'd go and do an uphill walk every day. And because I was losing weight, feeling better about myself, it just all started to fall into place. Constantly reading books. And then I get people on Facebook, and a lot of people are like, "Oh my God, he's just showing off again, blah, 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 dickhead, whatever." But I kept getting these people DMing me going, "Hi, mate, really enjoying your sober journey. Can you tell me how you've done it? Did you go to AA? Have you done any groups or anything like that? Have you joined any online communities?" And I did it cold turkey. And I did it cold turkey because I was a bit embarrassed that I was in this position, to be honest, and really ashamed of myself. And B, I've always been a very strong person. I've been able to deal with a lot through illness and everything through my life, nearly dying, all that kind of stuff. And like Stu, you kind of feel you're sort of invincible until you become addicted to alcohol, and then you become nothing and you feel worthless. So I thought, I'm going to do this because I believe that I can. And if I fail, I fail, but I'm going to give it a go. And everyone was like, "Wow, you're mad to drinking nearly every day for the best part of 4 or 5 years, if not longer. You're going to really struggle." And that just kind of spurred me on a bit, and particularly with my wife laughing, going, "You'll never do 3 months." So when I hit 3 months, she turned around and was like, "I like this version of you. You're now the version that I met in Ibiza. You're fun, you're happy, you're calm, you're just nice. You've gone back to being the person I married." And I was like, "Wow, was I that bad? Was I?" She was like, "No, you weren't that bad, but you just weren't you. You were a different version of you, and a version of you that I was starting to not like anymore. So luckily, I nipped it in the bud. And then because I'd sort of got over the 90 days, I thought, okay, I'll do 6 months. Never say never. Like Stu says, take it one day at a time. But I thought, I can't do that. I can't just say for today, I'm not going to have a drink. It's like, I'll set myself another 3-month challenge. Read more books, had more people DMing me and trying to help them out. And some people just, they come to me and they will say, oh, I really feel like I need a drink and all the rest of it. I'm the same as Stuart. I was like, right, what have you got to focus on? Are you making any tunes at the minute? Have you got anything you can focus on? Do you do any sports? And I'll try and pick a hobby for them to focus on, or do you need to do even basic stuff, nip to the shops, do anything to get out of that mindset of I'm gagging for a drink. And I'm looking back, I remember I used to plan my day sometimes around, like Stu, where I'd never go to supermarkets in the morning and stuff like that, because I was always at work or with the kids or whatever, or we were locked in the house anyway, so it was all online deliveries coming. But I'd be thinking, oh my God, where can I go that's passing a supermarket where I can go and get a couple of bottles of fizz? Because a couple of bottles might last me a couple of nights, and they might last me a night. Or I'd be like, oh my God, I've run out. What else is in the cupboards rooting through? And to go from that to not even thinking about having a drink. And I think once I hit 3 to 4 months, I decided that I had a really bad relationship with alcohol, and I was going to see how long I would go without wanting an alcoholic drink. Don't get me wrong, 6 months hit, and I was thinking, ooh, I've done 6 months now. Is it time to celebrate with a glass of fizz and all the rest of it? And then you get to coming up to my birthday, and everyone was like, oh, come on. And I was DJing. It was Halloween weekend. Everyone loves DJing on Halloween. First Halloween gig sober in many years. And I went, and everyone took the Michael and all the rest of it, and was like, oh, go on, have a shot. It's your birthday. And I was like, no. And I was chatting to people, and they were giving me a bit of jip. But then they were like, no, you're serious, aren't you? I can tell in your demeanor and the passion you've got about it. And I was like, I cannot recommend it enough. Speaking from someone who's drank pretty much every day for 5 years or longer, to have that clarity of thought and to be able to be calm in any situation, logically think things through and not react, and deal with anything that gets thrown at you with a clear head, is worth everything. You can't put a price on that. It's absolutely brilliant. So anyone out there who's struggling, like Stu says, if you need to reach out, talk to anybody. Come to me, come to Stu, find a local group. Everyone's different. I'm not religious like Stu. I don't believe in all that. So AA wasn't for me. Well, I've got really good friends of mine who went to AA and it worked for them, and they swear by it, and they get their coins and the chips and all the rest of it. And they as a friend of mine, Cone in Manchester, he said to me 3 years ago, you need to stop drinking. And it was when he stopped drinking, he said, come on, let's go on this journey together. And I said, I just don't think I can. And I wasn't ready. And he said, if you're not ready, you'll never achieve it and you'll fail. And you have to be ready, and you have to do it for the right reasons. You can't do it because someone tells you to do it. You've got to do it either because you've hit rock bottom and you really can't see a way out of it, or some major incident in your life where doctors might tell you. I mean, I've lost friends like Stu. I've had 5 of my friends commit suicide over the last 6 years. I've lost people to various cancers who are 10 years older than me, leaving behind their children. Really horrible stuff that you wouldn't wish on anyone. And the more that happened, the more I kind of thought, I'm getting close to that part where I've never thought about killing myself or anything else, but I've been very, very, very low. And I went for my, I think I told you last night in a little chat that I went for my I'm 40 and old health check years back. I think it was delayed by about 6 months. And I took 3 weeks off alcohol beforehand because I thought the doctor's going to absolutely crucify me. And they asked the question, how many units of alcohol do you drink? And I went, 20 a week, completely lying. Totting it up, I'd probably up to 100, sometimes 120 units a week quite easily. And I had all the bloods done and all the results came back, and I was absolutely bricking it, and everything came back perfectly normal. And I couldn't believe it. So guess what I did? I celebrated by getting back on it, going, I'm invincible. And at that point, I'm like, Stu, I wish I'd have taken that and gone, right, I haven't got anything wrong with me, touch wood. But I could have in the future, so I'm going to stop. And I didn't have any major health concerns, but I did. My entire body ached. I don't know if this happened to Stu or not, but my bones ached, and I used to get really bad headaches. And I thought I was getting bad headaches because I was hungover all the time. And I've since been to the doctors now. I get tension headaches because I get stressed, but I keep it so internalized that it results in a massive tension headache, which I now have proper medication for. And I'd never been to the doctors about them before because I always assumed it was a hangover.
It was a
And
hangover.
because I was 9 months sober when I went to the doctors, I said, I think I've given it long enough that it's not the remnants of my alcohol abuse, as it were. And he was like, oh, no. He said, it's very common. A lot of people don't do anything about it. So I take something for that now. And I'm 22 months today, actually, if it's the 16th. So 22 months today since I had my last drink, basically. And yeah, I'm like Stu. I cannot compare my life now to how it was 2 or 3 years ago. My life's been pretty good. I've had a great life. I've got no complaints and no regrets. Obviously, everyone regrets little things like little silly arguments you've had, most of them when I've been drunk and you just can't think rationally, but nothing to the detriment where friendships have been ended and things like that. But you just say flippant stuff, don't you? And then you regret it, you apologize the next day and hopefully move on. But now I haven't had a crossword with anyone. I've never had a negative thought. I'm all about optimism and I'm optimistic. Michael Gray's t-shirt, optimistic. And I want to help people. I want to inspire people. I've done a course on addiction. I did an MVQ level 1 online course. It was 8 weeks, 2 hours every Tuesday. And the other people on the course were in different situations to me. Obviously all suffering with addiction to various things, but it really opened my eyes to just how little help there is out there and how many people need it. And like Stu says, I also agree that everyone who tastes alcohol and starts drinking to a degree will be slightly dependent on it, because everyone turns around and says, oh, I can take it or leave it. And you go, okay, you take it or leave it. You take it or leave it and leave it for a year and prove that you can do that. Because if you can really take it or leave it, it won't bother you. And you say that to people and they turn around and go, oh, why would I do that? I enjoy a drink. I'm like, yeah, you enjoy a drink. But if the doctor turned around to you tomorrow and said, you can't drink alcohol again, would it crush your plans and your life for the next year? Most people don't think about it. But in reality, a lot of people would struggle with it. And that's because, like Stu says, our entire society and our entire life is built around alcohol. And like I sit with Anna, when you're watching TV and stuff, and it's so intrinsic in society and in life. And basically, if it was invented and discovered today, it would never be sold. It would be banned. It's more addictive than heroin and all that. All the studies have been done that it is one of the most addictive and destructive substances in the world.
100%.
But because it brings in such high revenues, and like Stu said, smoking was demonized 20 years ago, and that did have a big effect on a lot of people who quit. And it's one of those things, alcohol's a strange thing. When you tell people you quit smoking, they go, oh, good on you, brilliant, that's amazing. You tell people you've quit drinking, they turn around and go, why? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And that's happened to me loads of times when I've been DJing and out, and people who I've met and they turn and go, oh, can I buy you a drink? I go, oh, no, thank you, I'm on water. And they go, oh, why? I say, well, I don't drink alcohol anymore. I go, oh, have you got a problem? And I'll go, I haven't anymore. I did have. Do you want to hear about it? Kind of thing, and make a bit of a joke of it. But alcohol is the only legal drug in the world that, ruins so many lives and kills so many people and costs governments and society billions, 20 billion or something it costs with the amount of people who take sick days because of hangovers. And it's only when you read all this stuff and you really take it in and take the time to understand it, you learn about it and realize, what have I been doing all these years? And yeah, I'm the same as Stu. I run the bar at the PTA for the school. I have done ever since the kids started school. So for the best part of 5 years, I've been on the bar. Never drank on the bar because I thought if I have one, I want to empty the whole bar into myself. So I'd always drive. But I still run the bar, and people go, "Don't you find it weird serving people alcohol?" And I go, "No, because I don't have a problem with it. If they want to have a drink, let them. If that's how they have their fun, let them crack on." It's the same with drugs and stuff. If people want to do drugs, it's their life. Let them crack on.
Well,
But
let me carry on.
if people come to me for help and say, "I think I'm in a bad place. Can you help me?" That's brilliant, because they've taken that first step. And it's only when they realize that they need help will you have a chance of helping them. Yeah. I can turn around to many people and say, you don't judge people, but you can see on a Saturday night and go, wow, they're in a bit of a mess. And you see them the next week and they're in a bit of a mess. And you see them the week after and they're in a bit of a mess. And you kind of think, wow, I really want to help you, but I can't approach you because you obviously don't want the help. So I'll just be a friend and I'll look after you, make sure you get into a taxi okay, or I'll take you home or something like that. But if some point it comes up in the conversation, they go, I think I might knock it on the head for a bit. Bingo. That's the turning point for a lot of people. And a lot of people, it can only last a week and then they get straight back on it because they don't see the benefit of being off it. And the amount of people I've said to them...
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah. Go on.
During the course of the points you've been making, Emily says, I think when you were talking about take 90 days for the toxins to leave your body, she says it's so true. When I was pregnant with my son, 9 months of not drinking or wanting to have a drink, I felt amazing. It was the best detox ever. One of my friends, Jane, says she lost her hero, her brother Bernard, to alcoholism 5 years ago. She's also worried that she may have another sibling going the same way, but fully functioning and thinks it's okay because they only drink in the evenings. Jane is going to share this talk in the hope that it may hit home. Thanks for being so honest, guys.
And if it doesn't hit home, ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what if, as you say, like you were saying, Phil, if someone, because there are many people out there, and maybe this isn't the point to make now during this conversation, because it may come across as pretty flippant, but there are a multitude of people who enjoy a drink, who
absolutely
feel they have a problem, and it doesn't physically affect them in any way, shape, or form.
What I think it is, Andy, it's about people educating themselves and understanding that's I think where it's kind of falls short. It's people, and I did the same, and I'm sure Phil did the same. You're just conditioned by society, and I don't care what anyone says. You are conditioned. Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Nobody tells me to drink. You are. We're conditioned by loads of things. We don't realise it.
Well, our history conditions us, doesn't it? Our history conditions us.
Yeah. Our history, when you're a kid, what's the first thing you want to do? It's like getting into pubs underage. We all did it.
You have your first drink with your parents, don't you?
That still happens today. It's like, it's that rite of passage. It's that get there, and it's passed down. And I think for a lot of it, for a long time, it was sort of, it was the alcoholic is the drunk on the street, or the tramp, or there was a figure, an image of how you saw what an alcoholic was, which is total fabrication. It is in our society, and I think it's epidemic that people are struggling. And as Phil said, you say to anyone, right, well, if you haven't got a problem, or you can take it or leave it, take 3 months off. Try not to drink for 3 months. And most people will fall, I reckon, after 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely.
After 2 weeks.
I don't drink.
I even drink a lot.
I don't drink a lot at all. I maybe have 2 or 3 glasses of wine when I'm doing a radio show on a Sunday. That's it. And we've got alcohol in the house that's been here for months. I'm not making any excuses for myself. I'm just sharing.
I totally understand what you're saying there,
But if I said I can't have a drink, it would make me want to drink, and I really can take or leave drink. Through the summer,
exactly.
I don't drink.
So why is it? The question then is why, in your head, Andy? Why do you have that wine when you have the show? What is it? Is it association? Is it
totally.
Nerves?
No, not nerves. Far from nerves. I am programmed. And people who listen to my show will know. I'll start the show and I say, I don't feel like drinking today. The tunes are on. I'm feeling the vibe. We're having fun in the chat room.
Exactly.
I say, you know what? I might have a drink. More often than not, if I start the show not feeling like having a drink, I won't have a drink.
Yeah.
But occasionally, something will come. And because there's so much nostalgia attached to the music I play, I will reach for a drink. But I'm talking about one glass of wine or two glasses of wine. The rest of that
brilliant.
bottle gets used
that's
on
absolutely
cooking
brilliant.
for the week.
Yeah,
that's really good.
So it took me, I think, this year 5 months to fall in love again with vinyl and music. Like we spoke earlier before we came on air, Andy, that for 5 years I started selling my collection. I started selling it. I was getting good money because I've got from working in record shops and tweaking in America. I've got records that are worth a lot of money, but I just fell out with it. I just couldn't break that association. Every time I put a record on, I thought about drink and drugs and other things. And I, not obviously bigger extent than what you did, Andy, but if I went to do a mix, even if it was doing a mix for nothing, for going to the gym or whatever, I would drink a bottle of wine. And I couldn't break that association. And it's now, I got rid of my decks. I bought one turntable. I readjusted my association with music. I turned it back to where it was when I was 12 years old and I first started buying vinyl. But it's took that long, 5 years of sort of hating music, or not hating it, but scared to put it on, couldn't associate playing a record or putting a digital thing on without having a drink in my hand. I just couldn't break that cycle. I couldn't. So when I first started getting sober, it took me, I reckon, till sort of, I was buying records, but it really took me till May, June, where I was like, I am now comfortable. The association's gone.
Yeah.
I don't know how the association went, but it's gone. And since then, I've gone potty again. I'm like, buying records left, right, and centre. I can't bloody help myself. I'm like, now I've got an addiction again to vinyl. But
that's a good addiction to have, though, isn't it?
It is. And like we said, addictive personalities. Some people are far more addictive than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I'm getting at is, again, it's that association. So we associate going out, right? Well, we're going out, so we're drinking, and you don't have to go out and drink. I'm not saying you have to be not drink, but I think what we need to do is people need to educate themselves about the associations and not just be so flippant and blasé about it, because that's when people fall through the cracks and become alcoholics.
Yeah, absolutely.
When people we don't, I'm fine, I'm all right. Tell me what other thing you would ingest into your body that's poisonous, like alcohol, like Phil said, for the next day to feel absolutely horrendous. If somebody came up to you, I don't know, with some sort of food and says, you can have this and take it, you're going to have a great time tonight, but tomorrow you're going to feel absolutely awful. Most people go, well, I'm not taking it then. You know what I mean? But
absolutely.
With alcohol, we're absolutely, well, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to feel like shit, but I'm still going to go do it.
Yeah,
well,
it's a rite of passage. It's the weekend, so it doesn't matter. I can recover over the weekend, ready for work the following day.
You are poisoning yourself, and the next day it's like. And again, for me now, how I sort of try and talk to people who are trying to come off alcohol or anything. I say, but you're having fun for this short passage of time, say 4 hours going out. The first 3 drinks, you're never going to find that buzz again. Once you've gone past them,
you're
drinking for the sake of drinking.
Yeah.
Same with any drug. You're just taking it. You know, people who do cocaine, after the first line, after that, you're just taking a drug. You're never going to get that hit again like the first one, or maybe even the second one. But you'll carry on doing it. You'll carry on pushing along, peer pressure, whatever, with your mates. You know, and you are having a good time. I'm not saying you're not. But a majority of them will wake up the next day, probably won't remember a lot of the night, or whatever they remember is kind of blurred. But for me, I'd say to them, that evening's gone. You're at the next day now.
Yeah.
So was it worth all that for how you feel today if you honestly look back at it?
Waking up fresh every morning is probably the biggest plus. I mean, like going out to a gig, and I'll drive to all my gigs, and I probably won't get in till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes if I really push myself to stay out that late. But then I can get home and I can be up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, face the day, no problem, out with the kids, down the park, football, swimming, whatever, doing something really active. I used to do all that on a banging hangover. And I look back now and go, oh my God, the torture I put myself through just so I could have a drink. It's like, surely you absolute idiot.
Yeah, and surely you must look back. It's easy in hindsight, and we can say this because we don't drink.
Yeah.
Maybe saying this to somebody who drinks, it might bounce off walls. And they might go, yeah, I bet you don't. But you can probably say, and I did it when I went to these parties, I had as good a night tonight as I would have if it had been off my tits and drunk.
Absolutely.
I could say that the next day 100%, and I'm not lying.
Yeah.
Listen, gentlemen. Listen, I need to start wrapping this up because, as I did say, we will be talking and we'll be gone way past the 90-minute mark. We've been talking for 95 minutes. And,
fair enough.
We've had people passing through and enjoying it. A couple of people have said, "I'm definitely going to catch the rest of this on the catch up because it is very interesting." And I guarantee there are going to have been points made. There are going to have been instances that you've shared that so many people will relate to, and it's definitely going to plant a seed and it's going to be food for thought. I'm not entirely sure you're going to stop me having my couple of drinks of wine.
No,
but definitely,
everyone needs to do what they want to, Andy. That's the whole point. Is everyone, if you know your limits and you know how you're going to feel and you can cope with it, brilliant, crack on. For me, I know I can't do that, and that took me a long time to realize. And there's a lot of people out there who can't just have one, can't just have two. My mum, for example, she loves a drink, gets hammered sometimes and all the rest of it, but she can have a glass of wine and then not have another glass of wine for 3 months. And I'll be like, okay, you're still on the alcoholic scale, but it's each to their own. And you can't tell people. Everyone has got to find their own path. And at the end of the day, if they want to have a drink, let them have a drink. It's what life's about. Just be happy.
It's 100% be happy. And if it affects your life, affects your personal life, or you have the thoughts, then my advice is be sober curious. Try it.
Yeah. Be sober curious.
What are you going to lose by not drinking for 3 months? You can go back to drinking.
Yeah. It'll prove a lot to you if you do that 3 months. I would recommend everybody tries 3 months. 90 days, do it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You've planted the seed with me. I'm gonna get a few people to join me, and we'll do it after Christmas. I mean, I know you should start now, but I'm gonna do the 3 months, and we've got a good community out there, so I'll find a few who are going to do it with me, and we'll make a song and dance about it, and you guys can be heading the campaign. All right, sound
awesome.
Like a deal?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Hold me to that. It definitely happened. Okay, gentlemen, so many comments, so many replies that you can check back on. I'll say thank you now. I'm going to start wrapping up, and I'll leave you to the rest of your evening. Thanks so much for your time. It's really been
thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you having us on.
Frank, honest, enlightening conversation, and we'll get you back on again when I'm sure we'll talk about something like this again. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Respect.
See you, Phil.
See you, buddy.
Right. Wonderful. They've gone. Hold on. Let me just move this over here so I can look you in the eyes. What can I say? Thank you again, guys, when you come back and check out the recording and you read all of the comments. This screen in front of me doesn't really do justice to the amount of likes and shares that we've had for that. Because, as I say, all the likes you see here are mainly on the Inspire and Be Inspired official page. Most people are watching on my profile, so thank you for that. I'll read through these. Jane Boy says, I'm in for the 90 days. Nice to have you with me, Jane. I will hold you to that. We'll do it. Let's do it. We've got a strong team. We'll make it happen. Simon Darrell says, cheers, guys. Jane says, where's it gone? Sorry, I've got things beeping in my ears. Thanks for the insights. You're both amazing. Emily, thank you so much, Phil and Stuart. Julie, thank you, guys. Very insightful. Steve Carroll, some good advice. Big up, Steve. Sorry, I did see your comment earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt the gentleman. Up the villa, he says. And Leslie's Davis says, I'll do the 90 days too after Christmas. Yes, we'll make a big song and dance of it within the VB family. And hopefully it may make one or two people look long term at giving up alcohol. I've got some very close friends and people even closer to me who have serious issues with alcohol. I'm fully aware of what it does. I'm fully aware of how it rips lives apart. I've had my own journey with alcohol. I wouldn't say I've ever had an alcohol problem personally, but I've had some pretty crazy nights down the years. I've got myself into some ridiculous situations, and now I enjoy not really having a strong relationship with alcohol. Many people who are at the vocal booth will be laughing at that comment, and they'll remember what I was like on the Saturday night. It's easily done. I won't make excuses for that, and yet at the same time, there are excuses how you can let your guard down. You can allow yourself to get into those situations. But it happens from time to time. I personally, I'm happy that the hangovers are so terrible because it stopped me from drinking more than I probably would. I hate not being able to remember what I did a night before. I hate feeling like shit. I love not having any kind of major relationship with alcohol. But there are a lot of people out there who aren't in that position. So, hopefully, as I say again, that was an interesting conversation for many of you. Thank you all. I shall not keep you any longer. It's been a long one. You can see on the screen here, next week, next Wednesday, not Thursday, the 23rd of November, 7 o'clock UK time, we're going to get back into a music conversation with one of the undoubted heroes, one of the kings of the UK music scene, Mr. Gavin Mills. He used to be known as DJ Face. He was the man behind setting up the legendary Catch Records. He is behind a lot of massive hits that one or two people may not be familiar with, and they'll be familiar with the hits, they may not know that he had anything to do with it. And he's also better known in recent years as being one half of Copyright, now taking some amazing photographs for Defected, so on and so forth. That conversation is going to be next Wednesday. On the screen, I say thank you to all of my Access crew, all the subscribers who have helped me get this flashy new camera, some new lights in the studio. They give me the encouragement to put all of these talks together, badgering away in the daytime, coming up with new content. So thank you all. At the end of the show, your names will be proudly displayed on the screen. So respect to you. I'll leave you all to it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of Wednesday. What's happening Saturday morning? Saturday morning coffee club, something new that I'm going to be doing. Take a look on my wall for more details on that. That's me done. One love, guys. Be good to yourselves.